I was alone in my house. It was late. The TV was on, but I wasn't really watching it. The room was lit only by the blue glow of the screen, flickering across the walls. Outside, the wind dragged tree branches across the building with a slow scraping sound. Every house around me had gone dark hours ago. Even the traffic outside had faded into silence. I remember thinking how quiet it was, that kind of quiet that almost has a weight to it. Then, tap. I barely noticed it. Probably a branch, I thought. Maybe a bird. The house settling, the way old houses do. I kept watching TV. A minute passed. Tap, tap. This time it was louder. I glanced toward the window for just a second. Nothing there. At least that's what I thought. I shrugged it off. My heart didn't even beat faster. Not yet. Another few minutes crawled by. The show kept playing, but I was only half paying attention now. Some part of me still tuned to the window, without knowing why. Then, tap. One single tap. Perfectly spaced. Deliberate. I slowly turned my head, and that's when my blood turned to ice. There was a man standing outside my window, not moving. His face was pressed so close to the glass that I could see the fog from his breath collecting in tiny circles, spreading and shrinking with each breath. His eyes didn't blink. He simply stared at me. If you've ever seen a film where someone invades your space without saying a single word, you know that unbearable feeling. That slow motion dread where the threat isn't running at you, it's walking, patiently, like it has all the time in the world. That's exactly what this felt like. Every instinct in my body told me to scream, but I couldn't. I froze completely. I've since learned there's a name for it. Tonic immobility. Your body just locks. Every muscle refuses to move, no matter how loud your mind is screaming at you to run. The man didn't wave. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. He just smiled. Slowly, without taking my eyes off him for more than a second at a time, I reached for the remote. Click. The television went blank. Now the house was silent. Almost. I could hear myself breathing, too loud in my own ears. I didn't want him to know I was watching him. Keeping my body low, I crawled backward across the floor. Every tiny movement felt deafening to me. My knees slid across the carpet. My heart was pounding so hard, I was certain he could hear it through the walls, through the glass, through everything. I never took my eyes off that window. The man hadn't moved. His smile hadn't changed. Then, without warning, he stepped backward into the darkness. Gone. For one brief second, relief washed over me. Maybe he left. Maybe he was drunk, wandered off. Some stranger with no idea what he'd just done to me. Maybe. Then I heard footsteps. Outside. They were moving around the house. I heard them pass beneath another window, then another. He was walking around my home, looking inside, searching. I don't know if I can fully describe that feeling. It's like knowing a shark is somewhere in the water with you, but you can't see it. You know exactly where it is, or you think you do, and that's almost worse. Every shadow became a threat. Every sound became a warning. I didn't dare stand up. Then, knock. 3 soft knocks at my front door. Not loud, not angry, almost polite. Silence. Another knock. I stared at the door. I didn't move. Every horror story I'd ever heard flashed through my mind at once. Never open the door. Never answer. Never let them know when you're home. The knocking stopped. For a second I let myself believe it was over. Then the doorknob moved. Very slowly. Then another. Someone was testing the lock. My breathing became so shallow, My chest actually hurt. I finally grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so violently, I nearly dropped it twice before I managed to dial. The dispatcher answered. I whispered, "There's someone outside. Please hurry." She told me to stay hidden. Don't make a sound. Police were on their way. Those minutes have never felt longer in my life. The house went silent again. Until footsteps upstairs. My blood ran cold. That shouldn't have been possible. I was alone. I hadn't heard a door open. I hadn't heard a window break. There was no reason anyone should have been upstairs. Another step, then another. The old floorboards creaked under the weight of each footstep. My imagination filled every gap with something worse than the last. Had he gotten inside? Was he switching the rooms? Was he standing at the top of the stairs, listening for me, the same way I was listening for him? I didn't know. Then, red and blue lights swept through the curtains. Police. The footsteps upstairs disappeared. Officers searched the property, every corner, every side of the house. Nothing. No man. No forced entry. No witnesses. It was over. Or at least, that's what I thought. The next morning, daylight made the whole thing feel almost ridiculous. I sat with my coffee and almost convinced myself I'd imagined it, or exaggerated it, in the dark. Until an officer asked me to step outside. The grass around my house was covered in muddy footprints. Not one set, dozens. They circled the entire house, every single window, every angle, every place someone could stand and look inside. The officer followed the prints with his flashlight. Then he stopped beneath my bedroom window. His expression changed. He crouched down, looked closer. Then he said something quietly that I will never forget as long as I live. "These prints are much deeper." I asked him what he meant. He looked at the ground for a long moment. He stood here for a long time. Not seconds, not minutes. Long enough for the mud beneath his boots to sink in deep. Long enough to watch. My bedroom curtains had been left slightly open. From the exact spot, you could see directly inside. My bed, my nightstand, everything. Then the officer asked me something that made my stomach drop straight to the floor. "Do you usually sleep with the window open?" I nodded. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I found out later that forensic investigators believed the man had walked around the house multiple times before he ever revealed himself to me, which means he already knew the layout before the night even started. He knew which room was the bedroom. He knew when the lights were on. He knew exactly where I spent my evenings and for how long. But the most terrifying part of it all, he never forced his way in. There were no broken windows, no kicked doors. Whatever he did, he didn't need to break anything. That was never his goal. People who want to rob you move quickly. They avoid being seen at all costs. This man wanted the opposite of that. He wanted me to know he was there. He wanted me afraid. I've read that some predators like this aren't after violence at all. They're after control. The fear itself becomes the reward, and everything else is secondary. My house never felt safe again after that night. Every creak, every passing shadow, every reflection in the glass after the sun went down, it all brought that smile right back. Within a few weeks, I moved away. The man was never identified. No fingerprints, no security footage, no explanation of any kind. Just muddy footprints circling my home, and the memory of a face pressed against the glass, watching me, and smiling like it already knew exactly how the night would end. So tonight, before you go to bed, take one last look at your windows, pull the curtains closed, lock every door, because the most terrifying monsters aren't ghosts. They don't live in haunted houses. They don't wear masks. Sometimes they're standing silently outside, watching, waiting for you to notice.